We're going to go over some history here, and Lord willing, I don't want to go too long. This is sort of a lengthy slideshow, so we might cut this down and finish up tomorrow. But the great American truth, there is so much turmoil in this world right now. There is so much in this state in general, this country we live in. There is so much unrest, and it is hard to know what is truth for the common people. So we'll dive into that. But one of the questions I want to ask is, as Brother Henson was preaching on Baptist history, this has been a Baptist history camp meeting since, I believe, 2007. I believe is when we added Baptist history preservation to our church planners camp meeting. Is that accurate? Something like that? So since 2007, we've been doing the Baptist history preservation. And when you listen to the stories, we tell you the stories, or you hear the stories, you read the stories, it can be inspiring. I guess I'll put it that way. There's a level of inspiration that happens when you read these things, but how are they applicable? Amen. How does Baptist history applicable to you? And how is it applicable to me? Because if it's not applicable, Brother Henson was talking this morning about young people. Where are you at? I heard you say amen. There you are in the back. Brother Henson was talking about young people. They're not going to pick it up unless it's applicable. Right. It has to be relevant to the young people. Otherwise, they're just really neat stories. And so that's sort of the battle that we face. Otherwise, it's a couple of history buffs just talking, just chit-chatting. So there has to be some level of utility in the heritage itself. And a lot of people don't really fully grasp that. They don't really fully grasp that. But the purpose of the Great American Truth is in hopes that we can better understand. How about this? We teach ourselves how to rethink things. We teach ourselves how to think about Baptist history. Instead of just getting these stories in and we receive them, and great, they're wonderful. Some of them are even are tear-jerkers. But unless they have application, there's no use. They'll wane away with those that talk about them. So it's important to understand, what is the use? Can you even, I'm not going to ask anybody, but can you answer that? If I ask you, if it was just you and me, and I said, how does it help you? I don't want you to answer, but think about that for a second. So how does it help you? Let's get your Bibles out. Okay, thought I'd lost my Bible for a second. All right, let's get our Bibles out. Let's go to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. If you don't have your Bible, it's on the screen there. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9 says, "The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, See, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us." Now here's the thing. Can there be anything that we look at today and say, this is all new? This is new territory. What is it that fails us? Verse 11. There is no remembrance of former things. There is no remembrance of former things. Neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. So it's not that it doesn't. Here's the thing. We live in a society that is new to us. But that same society has existed since the times of Christ. It is not anything new. It's just new to us, so it feels dark and it feels dangerous. Okay, so Mark Twain said this. He said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." I think that's a really powerful statement. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So when we're looking through the history books and we're studying out our heritage, we're not looking for the exact repeat, but what we're looking for instead is a rhyme. Because if we can find the rhyme, we find the key to understanding our heritage in a useful way, in a way that has some utility for us. So the big thing that we can take away from history when reading is listen for the rhyme. So this is a pretty powerful quote by William R. William. The religious controversies of our times seem to transfer themselves into that historic field. The battle with the enemy at the gates soon shifts its scenes to the graves of the fathers and the monuments of the old past. How many monuments can you think of that have been torn down in the past 5 years? Everything, you can name it. Name anything that's going on in our country today. It is a religious battle. 100%. So let's look at some of this. Let's look at some of these things that are applicable. So we're going to go even to this point right here. Let's go to John 18. I'll tell you what, I'll read it. Okay? These are the two passages I want you to pay attention to. But John 18 and verse 33, we're dealing here, and I'm gonna point out some key figures in this, but we're dealing here with Pilate, Christ, and the angry mob outside. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again and called Jesus and said unto him, Art thou king of the Jews? Jesus answered him, Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me? Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thine own nation and the chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast thou done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight. Then I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom from hence. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. Pilate saith unto him, and this is our society today. Pilate saith unto him, What is truth? In the following context, it's a rhetorical question. What is truth? Who can know truth? You have an angry... Now, let's see if we find this parallel, okay? Let's listen for the rhyme on this. What is truth? Pilate didn't know. The angry mob was trying to dictate what Pilate was about to do. Pilate was staring truth dead in the eyes. He said, What is truth? See the rhyme? You have authority controlled by a mob trying to destroy truth. All right, I'm going to set this down so I can move around a little bit. Romans 1. Let's go to Romans 1, actually. Romans chapter 1, and then we'll get into the history here. Romans chapter 1 and verse 18. Let's understand ourselves a little bit. Let's understand people. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has showed it unto them, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his internal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So every man is born with some innate nature to understand God. And God uses that creation to point people to him. So that truth is automatically inside you. It is automatically inside you. It is not something that a man can take and place into your mind or into your heart. It is 100% something that is revealed. Okay? So it's important to understand that's the way that it works. Okay? Because when they hold the truth in unrighteousness, you think about this. Think about the moment. I can think about, personally speaking, the moment that I was saved. Do you remember the moment you were saved? How many have the testimony when you were saved that you gripped the pew in front of you? Tight. Come on, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but I will. You gripped the pew in front of you. I was white-knuckling on my drives home from work because I knew I wasn't saved. That is the truth trying to spring out inside of me, and I am warring with it because in my heart I am pure evil. And in your heart, you are pure evil. And so you constantly war with that. That truth is there, and God says, God is doing things to bring that truth out, to help it to flourish, so you can fully grasp and understand it. The truth is already there. It's innate in every man, but we hold it in unrighteousness. In our unrighteousness, we hold the pew in front of us and grip it tightly because we don't want that to come out. So what we do, what we all do, and I can say this, I'll use my testimony since nobody wants to raise their hand, is we create lies. I create a lie. I'll tell you personally speaking, my pride is a huge part of gripping that pew. And so I gripped that pew so tight, and I thought, man, this is after we made As with Roses. Like, what is John Kammeraad, the director and producer of As with Roses, what are they going to say when they find out he was lost? 2 lies there. Something thought it was something I wasn't. Easy, Mom. Gee. My family laughs the loudest. But that's the thing is you develop a lie. Maybe it's, man, I was saved when I was a kid. I was 5. I knew I'm going to develop that. While the Spirit is working on you, you develop that lie because it shields you from the truth. And so that's what we do in our nature. We're going to get to history, I promise. But this is important to understand these things, to understand America. That's why it's the great American truth. It's important to live not by lies. Truth, here's what we're going to stick to here. Truth is discovered and lies are created. Mankind did not and cannot create truth. They can only acknowledge its existence. Amen. Why do men seek to cover the truth? We just went through it with salvation. Why do men go to great lengths to develop and live within a lie? And why do those lies demand obedience? Why do lies, they demand your obedience? Once a lie is created and you've created it, trust me, you're half the problem in your own life. We all know that. It demands your obedience. It is tyrannical in its nature. A lie that you create is tyrannical. It wants you to bow to it. You've created it. You've developed it. And so it's pulling you to live within that lie. Now, this is important to understand the heart first when understanding our heritage. It's important to understand your heart first because the name Baptist is something that you can use as a badge to wear. And if you're not careful, that's the same type of spirit that persecuted the people that we were talking about Sunday. You wear it as a badge, as a cover. So it's important to live not by lies. How can man, here's the thing too, how can man create good? Last time I checked, Avery, I was a dirty, rotten sinner. Were you a dirty, rotten sinner? Are you a dirty, rotten sinner? Derek, dirty, rotten? We're all dirty, rotten sinners. Anybody not? No, we all are, right? How can you create anything good? We can create nothing good. We can only kneel to good. But we can create absolute evil. We have no hope in that. So what we develop is this thing. We develop this lie, right? And we call it truth. That's the problem. I was saved when I was 5. Yeah, I was saved. I remember the day. I remember being saved. Well, the Spirit wars with you. I'm using my personal testimony. So what we develop, and let me tell you, with culture, the way culture works is new words and phrases are constantly created. They're constantly created. This is a new one. My truth. If that's in your vocabulary, get rid of it. Amen. The only one person in history can say my truth, and that is Jesus himself. Amen. We cannot say my truth. But we develop that as, it's my truth. It's such an awesome saying. Okay, so my truth. What is the definition? A pretentious substitute for non-negotiable personal opinion. It's a pretentious substitute for non-negotiable personal opinion. So that's why we develop these these lies, and we call them my truth, because somehow it makes me feel better if I say it's my truth. Hey, you know what? I'm a cat, right? I'm a woman. I just bought a pair of heels because I gotta live within my truth, right? We develop these lies, and this is my truth. I don't want to be a dad anymore. I want to be a mama. This is my truth. You know, we think about the you can apply that to anything. There's an easy way to take the moral high ground in just about everything if you just call it my truth, because it's the truth, right? So that's what we develop. We develop this idea that is my truth, and this is the nature and the rhyme within mankind. You know why they killed Jesus? Because they were listening to my truth. That's why they killed Jesus. They were listening to my truth. You know why they killed all the martyrs that we talk about? All of the persecution that happens in history? It's my truth. These people are standing up against my truth. So that's the importance of understanding. You cannot. We can only kneel to it. You have to. Otherwise, you're abiding in a lie. You can only kneel to truth. It's not ours. It's not yours or mine. So I'm giving you all that to understand, best I can, is how we work. This is the importance this is why you can't hide in a name. You can't hide in the word Baptist. You can't. Be careful to use that word aggressively, because it gives you nothing. It doesn't. Sure, you might believe the way you're supposed to believe. Well, you know what? I'm sure the devil himself knows all the doctrine there is to know. So it's easy to hide in that name. Right? Okay, so it's important to understand that's how the person works. Now we're going to look at America. Because public schoolers, people that went, when you're younger, you went to school, you heard about the Mayflower. Religious liberty, man. America, yes. America was founded on religious liberty. So you heard about the Mayflower, and then you heard about the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving and all that good stuff. Well, let's look at it. Oh, wait, I'm jumping the gun there. So I'll just read this real quick and we'll move on. Truth cannot be created. It has existed long before us. Lies exist if we are willing to allow them to exist. So the importance of that is this. You can't serve the Lord the way you are meant to serve the Lord if you are tyrannically being governed by lies within your heart. That is first and foremost. I don't care about anything that you believe if you do not understand that first and foremost, and you abide by the truth and only in the truth, and you live in righteousness, and you walk step in step with the Lord himself. I don't care what else you believe. I don't. Because it doesn't matter. I don't care. That just tells me how knowledgeable you are. Right? So, please understand. I'm not saying that that's not important. You get what I mean. So, anyway, let's move on to the Mayflower. So, if America was founded on this idea of religious liberty, let's examine the founding documents, the compacts. If I shake your hand, it's a compact. If we have an agreement, it's a compact. You will abide by it, I will abide by it. This is what we're going to abide by. You have them in your churches as covenants. The Mayflower Compact. So let me ask you this. Let's read it and let's kind of talk about it. I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. In the name of God, amen, we whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James. First document already saying we're under King James still. Okay? By the grace of God of Great Britain, France, Ireland, King Defender of the Faith, having undertaken the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith. Still under the King and the honor of King Country. Okay, so, in witness whereof we have hereunto subscribed the names of Cape Cod of 11th November, reigns sovereign King Lord. That's another time they're calling him Lord King James right there. This is the Mayflower Compact, which I thought that was religious liberty, but we're still under the sovereign, the king. So there's nothing new. Tell me where is it new? You see, okay. Here's another one. This is the Virginia Charter in 1606. Now let's talk about my truth, okay? That the true word, already we own the corner on truth. First thing in the charter. Now the charter is gigantic. I took 2 points of it. That the true word and service of God and Christian faith be preached, planted, and used, not only within every of the said several colonies and plantations, but also as much as they may amongst the savage people, which do or shall adjoin unto them or border upon them. Meaning the savages that are in the area are touching our colonies, they're going to go to church too. According to the doctrine, interesting. According to the doctrine, rites, and religion now professed and established within where? The realm of England. Wait a minute. I think my history teacher might have been fibbing. What happens if you don't? What happens if you don't? Okay? They shall, in this bottom part here, they shall with all diligence, him or them so offending, cause to be apprehended, arrested, and imprisoned, until he shall fully thoroughly perform himself, or otherwise, when the cause so requireth, that he shall, with all convenient speed, be sent to the realm of England. And I'll stop there. You're going to be in prison. If you don't abide right there by the top, my truth, you're going to be imprisoned. Where's the religious liberty there? It's non-existent. But I thought Thanksgiving and the pilgrims and the freedom and the la. It's not really there. Beware of those that hold the corner on truth. And that's the lesson in history. Beware of those that hold the corner on truth. You think about okay, let's move on. So we're going to look at that first part of America. You need to understand the state of America. So, okay, we've established the grounds of the human nature, how humans work. We've established that in the early part of the country, this idea of religious liberty was not there. It just absolutely wasn't there. You have to show it to me. And we're gonna realize who has heard the name George Whitefield? Okay, everyone, good. Everyone's heard of George Whitefield. We're going to go over George Whitefield. And I'm not going to jump the gun. We're just going to keep moving. Otherwise, okay, so what this led to, when they come to the New World, now everybody's coming to this New World, like this is the new land, we're going to start fresh, we're going to have some liberty. So people are moving to this New World and finding out that it's not different. You are still having to baptize your infants, and you're still having to pay taxes to those churches. So this really isn't any different than the old world. That's what people are finding. So what happens over time is people are coming in. They're already sick of the old world. They come to the new world, and as time goes on, there is no truth. Where's the truth when we're talking about infant baptism as a means of salvation? Where's the truth in that? None, right? And so you have this country that is starting to grow. People are starting to flood into it, but you have to abide by the state religion and point of view. So if you go away from that, what's going to happen? You're going to be sent back to England if you don't straighten up. So your infants are being baptized, and you're finding that you still have to pay taxes, even if you don't go to a church, you have to pay those taxes. Okay, so what's happening is people are rapidly losing interest. They don't care anymore, right? But here's the thing: is you can still, when there's money involved, it's funny. You don't really have to, as long as you're paying your money, it's okay. And that was the same spirit back then. As long as you're paying your taxes, it's okay. You pay your taxes to the parish, you're okay. But people were rapidly losing interest in religion altogether. So in the 1720s, in the early 1720s, vital religion in this country was almost completely, interest in God himself was almost completely non-existent. Okay? So, backwards. So, sorry, give me just a second here. Okay, so what they started to do is say, okay, so we're losing people, right? We're losing members. We're losing, people don't have as much interest. So let's go back to 1662. The Massachusetts Synod cited 1662 that their children are to be baptized. The baptized children, however, were not given the right to vote. What they ended up creating, what was called as a halfway covenant, because people were getting baptized as infants, not going to church all their lives, living in the world, living in sin, having children, and then they want their children to come to be baptized. Those that held their baptism as something precious, their infant baptism, something precious, they had a problem with this because they're living morally sound. Right? But these people that are coming in the world, and you're seeing them living just however they want to live in the world, they're coming in and they want their children to be baptized. They created what's called the halfway covenant. It's a way, in short, it's a way to keep tax dollars rolling in. In short, that's what it is. It's a way to keep those tax dollars continually rolling in. Because what are we going to do? Tell them they can't come here anymore? Then what are they going to do? We're going to have a revolt on our hands before too long. So they created what was called the halfway covenant, sort of meet in the middle. Like you could come and you could baptize your kids, and that way they get their baptism, but you can't vote. That way we're meeting both sides. The mob is controlling the authorities here. You see this? You see the rhymes. See the rhymes. At the same time, salvation, the message of the gospel of Christ is nowhere. Right. And we're arguing over religion. But there's no truth. I'll get it right here. By 1720, Thomas Stoddard created another repeal here. And so your kids could come and be baptized back in the 1600s. By 1720, it came down to this decision by Thomas Stoddard that the community could come in and they could take of the Lord's Supper. Take a communion, let's call it that. Communion. You could come and take communion. You didn't have to go to the church at all. You could come and take communion. Thomas Stoddard. What that did is absolutely destroyed anybody's will to want to know more about the Lord. Not if that wasn't enough already. The state of the country, the fact that you had to kind of go to churches. If you understand how when you went to church, they were sent these documents from England to read. How would you like that I'm kind of doing that now, but if I came up here and I'm reading this document and every church is reading it and we're reading this, this is given by the Church of England and we're going to read it and wow, how boring is that? There's nothing personal in that. People crave the truth. That truth that we talked about that's inside of you, you crave that truth. That's why when you read the scriptures and you have those moments where the Lord just speaks to you in such a way, that's truth. You're engaging with truth. It's the same experience, same emotion that you had when you were saved. People want truth. And so America didn't start the way we think it may have started. But then also it was deteriorating rapidly. The vital religion was gone, okay? And that's 17, let's see. I keep going the wrong way, I apologize. I'll get through this. Okay, so the last thing here. So the ministers that you're listening to, right, that are changing all the rules up, the way they want to change them up. Think about this. What is that? If we can listen for the rhyme, what is that? It's cancel culture. It's the same thing Pilate dealt with. It's cancel culture. The authority is listening to the mob and saying, what am I going to do? So it's the same thing. People just want someone to have a backbone. That's all they really want. Have a backbone. You realize how much you'd stand out in society if we had backbone? Yeah. So what they had was state and church together, creating colleges. The only ministers that are approved are those that are coming out of the colleges. So they really got a monopoly on this thing called religion in America. So the only people that are preaching in pulpits are those that are approved by the colleges. Here's the thing. They had it is recorded by Lumpkin. They had no evidence of any walk with the Lord outside of the pulpit. No evidence in their life that they were interacting with the Lord. All they had is they stood up there in their clerical robes and they proclaimed the doctrines that they were supposed to proclaim. But there was nothing true in them whatsoever. And people saw that. So you had wolves in the pulpit. So understanding that, okay, let's understand that America is in a spiritually dark place. There is no truth. Where are you going to find it if it's outlawed? Where are you going to find it? Let's take a trip across the Atlantic. It's the Atlantic, right? New York, Atlantic. Making sure. I never said I was that smart. I just got to look at Brother Tom here. I think this is almost poetic. The way that this is that as America is in the darkest. Its infant stages has zero truth in it. It's a very dark place. And so over in near Bristol, England, you have a mine a coal mine. And these workers are working in the coal mine. And as they're slaving away in that dark, dark mine, lit back then in the 1730s, I think this was at this point, by the candles and wherever they were lighting, they're hearing a voice reverberate off the walls. And that voice is declaring, "You must be born again. You must be born again." So think about that for a second. These miners are hearing this voice cry out. They're setting down their tools. I think I'm hearing someone speaking, someone shouting or yelling or something. Someone hurt or whatever it is. Let's get out there and go check out what it is. And so they come out of the coal mine. Let me lay this out for you. There's a 17-year-old kid. A 17-year-old kid declaring the truth because he wasn't allowed to speak in churches. They wouldn't have him. So he said, "I'm going to the open air." 17 years old. The guy's got more. I'm 30. He's got 20 years on me. Got way more backbone than I have. Probably will ever have. Ye must be born again. He's declaring it. Let's read about this event. 17-year-old. This is George Whitefield, obviously. After much prayer, this is written by a friend of his that was there, okay? After much prayer, he one day he began to preach about 100 coal miners upon Matthew 5, 1 through 3. The thing soon became known. The number of hearers, now remember, 100, rapidly increased until the congregation amounted to many thousands. Well, let's finish it. His own account of the behavior of these neglected coal miners who had never been in the church a day in their lives is deeply affecting. Having no righteousness of their own to renounce, they were glad to hear a Jesus who was friend of publicans and came not to call the righteous but sinners to repentance. That's what this little kid was shouting and touting. And he drew in thousands. Now here's the thing about Whitefield. When you hear, the reason you've heard about George Whitefield, because he's like literally America's first celebrity. He is the world's first. The guy's preached all over the world. In a day that he lived, that's not easy to do. But what you hear mainly is all these little events. They have thousands of people. Wow. Thousands. It must have been something. George Whitefield must have been something. Think about the environment he lived in. Ye must be born again. Whitefield stated of the event, when he's preaching out to the coal miners, he's looking out as a 17-year-old kid. He has no idea what's going to happen. He's only preaching from his heart. What God has said inside, man would not quiet. Man would not quiet. And they said, "You're not going to preach in the churches." So he went on his own, and he's preaching there, not knowing what to expect. That's the key thing. We look in history like, oh yeah, well, he's George Whitefield. No, he's a 17-year-old kid. And so he's standing out there and he's preaching. This was his thing. He said, "Out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water." All affected and in tears, was almost too much for and quite overcame me. The first discovery of their being affected was to see the white gutters made by the tears which plentifully fell down their black cheeks. These filthy coal miners came out and he was telling them about Jesus. Finally, someone's telling the truth. Finally, someone's telling us the truth. We live in a society that's looking, within the next 15, 20 years even, is going to be desperately be seeking for someone just to speak truth. Just tell us the truth. I'm sorry, he was 25. I'm going to correct it. It's history. We've got to be accurate. He wasn't 17. He was 25 years old. He was 17 when he started preaching, though. Okay. So this is happening across the Atlantic. Remember we talked about that warring? You're gripping the back of the pew. You want to be saved, but something's warring inside you. So you're just, it's like if you could imagine that in your head, it's like you're pushing down on the Holy Spirit, stopping that truth from getting out. You don't want it to come out. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. This is Psalms 85. I'll leave it at that just so we can be quick here. But truth will Lies will die. Lies have a lifespan. A lie will have a lifespan. So you live in a society of lies. Dads can be moms. Moms can be dads. Babies aren't really alive. They're just a matter of tissue. Lies will die. They do die. They have a lifespan. Truth is eternal because we didn't create it. Everything we create dies. I don't care how much science evolves. Everything we create dies. We won't live forever. We die. We are sin. I'll just leave it at that. Now, here's the thing. Now, here's what I'll leave you with, okay? This is important. Now, when I was talking about 17, this is what reminds me. This is when he was 17. He created this list. We live in a culture that is 100% focused on self-indulgence. Y'all got your phone in your pocket? How many times do we just because I want to? Whatever I want, I get. We live in an environment where it's just so easy I'm just going to pull this phone out of my pocket, whatever it is. I want to go get fast food, whatever you want. We live in a society that whatever you want, you can have and you can get plentiful of. You can have as much as you want of it. We don't have an environment of self-discipline, self-control. One of the first things George Whitefield, when he understood this truth, when he was saved, was he understood the idea that he is pure evil. We are pure evil, and if we can stop it, we will stop truth. So it's important to live daily under discipline, under your physical body. To live under discipline. So George Whitefield, I know this is really small, and I'll read it for you. And I can get you this list if you want. This was his daily reflection list as a 17-year-old. As a 17-year-old, this was his reflection list. Have I been fervent in private prayer? Have I used stated hours of prayer? Have I used short communicative prayer every hour? Every hour. If we were in prayer as much as we were on Facebook, I'm telling you the world would be flipped upside down. Every hour am I talking to my Savior. Yes, sir. Have I, after every conversation, considered how it might tend to God's glory? This is number 4. Have I, after any pleasure, immediately given thanks? Have I planned? He was hardcore. Like this guy was, he meant, and this is why you know who George Whitefield is, by the way. Then have I been simple and recollected everything? Have I been active in doing what good I could? Have I been meek, cheerful, affable in everything I have said or did? Have I been proud, vain, unchaste, or enviable of others? Have I recollected in eating and drinking thankfully, temperate in sleep? Have I been diligent in studies? Have I thought or spoken unkindly of anyone? Psalms 4:4 says, stand in awe and sin not. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. Selah. I tell my kids this all the time. When you are on your bed, when you go to bed tonight, you can ask yourself, what did I do today? What good did I do today? Work with your own heart. What did I do? Can we reflect on the day so that in the morning, is there something that I did today that beset me just a little bit? Did I fulfill all that God wanted me to fulfill today? And maybe the next morning we wake up, we change some things. We alter. When we think of a business plan, when you start a business, you come up with these plans and these ideals and we're going to do this, we're going to abide by this. You have a structure in place. If you are at war with the devil, and it isn't so much that the devil's winning in your life, it's the fact that you're not fighting. We don't fight. That's fighting. That's proactively thinking about the next morning. The next morning, what's going to happen? I know first thing, Brother Tom, the devil's going to be at my bedside. When you said you roll out of bed and put your feet on the ground, pray. Because you're entering a battlefield, my friends. And that's exactly what Whitefield knew. He knew he was entering a battle at 17 years old. And nothing was going to stop him. And so when he preached these coal miners. He had been doing this for almost 10 years by the time he was 25. 10 years. And what we're going to see through the study, let me see if I got one more. Here's something, this is what's powerful. Whitefield said this, we can preach the gospel of Christ no further than we have experienced the power of it in our own hearts. That's good. That's right. Otherwise, you're faking it, man. You're faking it. You have to, it's the interaction with the truth. And so what we're going to see in this great American truth is that Whitefield and America are about to collide. And let me tell you something. we can really love these stories of Whitefield, but what we're going to see this weekend, if you don't already know, what we're going to see is I'm going to show you exactly why God used Whitefield and what he used him for. And it wasn't the massive crowds. And I will leave it at that. But Brother Woody, I'll turn that over to you.